especially those who are running unopposed.
Good.
Yeah, we've got a few. And I think we have one race, don't we, Donna? Maybe.
That's me.
Yep. John?
Yep.
Yep. I think you're the only one that's got a race.
Yep. That's right. I'm used to that.
It used to be Karen.
Yeah, it's been unusual. So, and I guess we can honestly say we have a new mayor. So,
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yep. So I'm going to turn this over to Renee, and
Okay.
she's going to talk about the audit, introduce some people. So Renee, I hope you're on the line. I don't see you, but go ahead and take it away.
Hi, Victoria Daly is here from Hochschild Bloom to talk about the audit that was just completed for June 30th, 2020. Take it away, Victoria.
Hey everyone.
Victoria.
So I will go over the audit. I have a couple reports to get through. The first one, I don't know if you have this with you, but it's the city's CAFR. So it's a comprehensive annual financial report. First, the transmittal letter is the city's letter explaining different things about the city, the government profile, the economic condition and outlook, the major initiatives, and included in the major initiatives, it does explain how the COVID-19 pandemic interrupted city operations in early March of 2020. Because of uncertainty about how stay-at-home orders would affect sales tax revenue, all non-essential expenditures were frozen, part-time employees were furloughed, and the annual transfer from the general fund to the capital fund for street projects was reversed. But by early fiscal year 2021, it became apparent that the pandemic had very little, if any, effect on the revenues as sales tax continued to increase and exceeded the budgeted revenue. By the end of 2020, all employees were taken off furlough, and expenditures that were cut were reinstated, and then the previously reversed transfer to the capital fund was made. All payments began to be made by either wire or ACH, and all accounts payable documentation was completed electronically. So these changes, which allowed finance operations to continue uninterrupted, and also resulted in increased efficiencies and savings for the finance department. So I thought that was important to note. And then it's also the 28th consecutive year that the city received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. So that's also important. Not every city submits a CAFR, so you have to go above and beyond what a normal financial statement includes. Next, it goes over the organizational chart, the principal officials, certificate that the city received for the 2019 audit. Now for the fiscal part, there's the government-wide financial statements, which include the things such as capital assets, your net pension asset, and your debt. And it's designed to provide you with a broad city's finances, which is similar to a private sector business. So for 2020, the city's total net position was about 56 million, which increased about 7 million from 2019. Total assets of 63 million, which increased over 5 million, which is mainly due to capital assets such as the dedicated infrastructure, sidewalks, and stormwater. Total liabilities of 8 million, which decreased about 1.2 million from last year, which was due to continuous debt payments, and then the 2019 defeasance, which decreased the city's debt. So that left a total net position of 56 million, an increase of 7 million. 1 million that was unrestricted, which is eligible to meet the city's ongoing expenditures. And then 6 million was the net investment in capital assets. Then the statement of activities, which is kind of like the government-wide income statement, shows revenues of 22.5 million, expenditures of 15 million, which shows you the increase of 7 million. Revenue increased almost 6 million, mainly due to those capital grants from the dedicated infrastructure and then the large road grants that the city has awarded. Also increased 400,000. And then your expenditures, your public works expenditures increased 1.7 million as well due to the asphalt overlay and concrete panel replacement projects and various grant expenditures. So on the government basis, your net position increased 7 million. Now on the short-term focus is your governmental funds. Those are your budgeted funds, and these account for essentially the same as the government-wide, but it's a near-term focus. So on your governmental funds, you have, the general fund, the debt service fund, capital projects, and then your non-major funds, your smaller funds, which is the water line and sewer lateral insurance. At the end of the year, all those funds, total assets were 15 million, liabilities of 2 million, which ended up with total fund balances of 12.8 million. Now the general fund counted for 7 million of those assets and almost $1 million of liabilities, which ended the year of 6 million of net assets, fund balance. So it is important to note in the general fund, this year is a little different. The 2020, whenever the next year's budget, so 2021's budgeted expenditures exceeded revenue, we have to take some of that fund balance out of unassigned and put it into assigned. So unassigned fund balance was 4.7 million. Assigned fund balance was 76,000. Now that doesn't really change total fund balance. It just decreases the unassigned. And it's probably not needed because 2021, the actual revenues have exceeded the budget so far per our discussions with Renee. But that's just a little change in the different components of fund balance for the general fund. So some changes in the funds. Your general fund increased 1 million, so that's almost 21%. There was a slight increase in revenue of 94,000, and some of that's due to the tax increase. A slight decrease in expenditures of 58,000 due to conservative spending, and then the decrease in the transfer to the capital projects fund. Service fund increased 500,000, almost 56%, and the ending fund balance was 1.4 million, and fund balance mainly increased due to the decreased expenditures from the 2019 defeasance of the bond, increase in property taxes. So your property taxes increased overall. Capital projects fund had fund balance of 500,000 at the end of the year. It began the year with 5 million. It began the year with 5.5 million, which was a decrease of almost 10% of 550,000. And that's just mainly due to the increase in capital outlay and the decrease in the transfer from the general fund. Non-major funds, the sewer lateral and the water line insurance, those also increased 63,000 with ending fund balance of 337,000. And that's mainly due to an increase in taxes as well. So that's a brief overview of what occurred in the various funds. The budget, the general fund, the revenues were over budgeted amounts. So you had actual revenues of 11.4 million and over about 91,000. Your expenditures, your actual expenditures were below the budgeted amount by about 1 million. So you had actual expenditures of 10.4 million and budgeted expenditures of 11.5 million. And the report goes into depth about the budget to actual. It has various schedules for each of the funds, but the most important thing to note is that none of the funds had actual expenditures over the budgeted amount. So that's good because you don't want to spend what you don't want to overspend what's been appropriated. A brief overview of loggers. So that's the city's pension plan. The loggers did decrease. So you have a net pension asset, which is good. That means you have more money than what is expected by the actuary to be owed, to be paid out for those benefits. And you have a net pension asset of 655,000 as of 2020. So this did decrease 712,000, and that's mainly due to a decrease in the net investment income, just due to COVID and other market, the economic outlook. This was, many of the different cities had this same trend, at a decrease in their net pension asset or an increase in their net pension liability, but still the cities had an asset as of the end of the year. There wasn't the notes explain the city's accounting policies and procedures. It goes in depth about cash balances, capital assets, the pension plan, the long-term debt. It really changed from last year was a subsequent event note, just that the city defeased a portion of the series 2014 bonds in the amount of $550,000. And then we also added a note about the COVID pandemic. The ongoing threat continues to lead to economic uncertainty. The duration of these uncertainties and the ultimate effects cannot be reasonably estimated at this time. But, you know, so far, I believe in 2021, you know, the pandemic hasn't really affected the city too much with sales tax revenues. And then in the back part of the CAFR, it explains its statistical section, which provides just more information on financial trends, revenue capacity, debt capacity, demographic and economic information, and operating information. Roughly, 70-page CAFR summarized. The second report we have is the report on, this is for the single audit. It's a report on federal awards. So anytime government's expenditures, federal expenditures are over $750,000, it requires a single audit. So we have that report, which it explains the city's expenditures, federal expenditures were 1.6 million, and most of that was in the MoDOT grants, the road grants. We also would have to disclose if we came up with any findings or question costs. And we didn't note any of that, which is good. So that's like, it's like a clean opinion on your federal expenditures. There was also the clean opinion on the audit. And then finally, report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance. This is also known as the Yellow Book letter. And this is our report on internal control. So it states that we consider the city's internal control over financial reporting to determine the audit procedures, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion. We do not express an opinion on the effectiveness. However, in our planning, we would note any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and there were none. So that's good. To note no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. The final report is the management letter. And so this is our letter to management. It goes over significant matters, our accounting estimates for depreciation expense on the capital assets, the net pension asset estimate. We explain any corrected and uncorrected misstatements, which there were none. Any difficulty encountered in performing the audit, which there were none. No disagreements with management, none. And then other audit findings, which is in our schedule of management comment and recommendation. And in this, we had no comments last year. We just had one new comment this year, which stated that we noted the city has segregation of duties, but could further strengthen internal controls in the area of cash receipting. Specifically, we noted the person who receives money from various departments also reconciles the receipts to the general ledger and deposit slip. And so we recommend the city strengthen internal controls by having another person compare the deposit slip to the department reports to ensure amounts agree. And I believe that's being done. So we cleared in 2021. That's my spiel. Does anybody have any questions?
I have none. Great job.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I think, everyone that worked with us for the city's audit, the finance department, Renee, her staff. We really appreciate. Audit was a little different. Most of it was done virtually, so we really appreciate their help and getting the audit done as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Thanks, Renee and your staff, and thank you for your audit.
All right.
All right,
Okay, goodbye.
bye.
Um,
Have a good night.
Good night.
You too. So one thing I want to raise is we had a general fund increase of $500,000. You may recall we took $400,000 from the street capital account and put it back into the general fund. I think that was sometime in April last year. And question I have to the board is we can put a transfer on the next agenda to put that $400,000 back into the street account if that's the direction you guys want to go. So I'd like to hear some comments on that.
Does
Sounds
Derek
like-
need it?
Sounds like the right thing to do, Paul, for me.
I agree.
I agree.
I
Derek,
agree, Paul, unless there's anything else you feel that the city needs.
Yeah,
Well, I think we're on track to have a really good year, more than what we budgeted for revenue. And remember, we did cut our expenditures. So I think that's something that you, working with city staff, can discuss here probably this spring. You know, take a look at where we stand. Right now, we're $800,000 over budget in revenues for sales tax alone. Our court fines are going to be more than what we budgeted. And so one thing I think that we ought to consider is going back and making another adjustment to the pay. Remember, we made the,
Right.
for lack of a better word, cost of living increase. We did not give the merit increase. So employees got the 1.5% increase, typically to stay up with not only our market, but also to move people through the pay grade. We want to be around 3% on average. And so I think we're still light about 1.5%. And that's something that we have plenty of money to do if that's what you guys want to do.
We don't want to fall behind in the pay grade like we did several years back. So that would be something that we should really discuss in, coming up here pretty soon in April, probably.
I agree. And Paul, isn't that figure for 1.5% around 90,000?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, we can easily afford it. Like I say, we're at 800 grand to the good in sales tax right now.
Okay.
and I
Good.
agree with John because I was on the board when we had to make that adjustment and that was pretty costly. So I think we need to stay ahead of this.
Yep.
Is
I
there
think
also-
that's a good, Paul, I support you on that, but I would like to add something else that maybe you're about to talk about, but we basically gutted the Parks Department and we need to restore the program money so that the different activities for the Parks Department can timely begin for this year. And so those first two items I support, but I also would like to say that I'd like to see the board support also the adjustment to add those items back in the Parks Department.
I'm okay
And
with
you're-
that.
Yeah, you're right, Gary. That's the other big item. I mean, we cut all the recreation. And there's some other things that George can work with the department heads on to recommend to put back in the budget. But I think overall, great year, even though we were worried about COVID just decimating our revenues. And, we're having a pretty good year this current year. So things are really positive. We're fortunate as a city to be in the position we're in.
Mhm, we are.
And as always, the fact that we're so conservative, really, it's amazing how well we do. And we appreciate that, Paul, and all the department heads for cutting back on expenses and really watching their budgets. So, and I would also like to see, I mean, I'm sure they all have a wish list of things they would love to have too. So I'm sure we're going to be seeing that too here in the next couple of months.
Can we put that on the agenda for the next board meeting, all three of those areas?
Yes, we can.
Sure. George, you'll take care of that, won't you?
Sure will.
That was
got
for
it.
George. That wasn't for Paul. That was for George.
Oh, he's ready. No problem.
Oh.
He's-
Paul just
Okay.
wants to call in for the fun of it.
Yeah, I was telling Renee earlier, the ladies in finance, I can spy on you. You keep this Zoom going. Adam, I'll tell Adam. Hi. Don't let anybody know I'm here.
But are you really?
I got better things to do, guys.
I was gonna say, on a Monday night or Tuesday night.
Yeah,
Monday Night Football.
that too.
Paul,
That
if we
too.
need to, we'll just look for the tree in your backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Party tree. That's where we're all stopping. So,
yeah. John knows about my drinking tree.
well, we're hoping
Um,
the barbecues are starting soon, Paul.
That's right. Okay, so I think we have on the line Tom Kyman and Jim Cook, and Steve DeVito, I think, might be on the line as well. Steve and his partner own the property that Tom and Jim are very interested in building some apartments on. And I talked to Tom briefly just a few minutes ago and said, what we want to look at is his proposed elevation for the buildings. We don't want to get into the site plan tonight because that's going to come to the planning commission after it works through city staff. He's already put some thoughts together on the site plan, but let's focus on the way the buildings look right now. And I think we're going in a really good direction. So Tom, can you know how to share your updated elevation with us? Is that something that you can do, or you need some help with that?
Yes, sir, I can do that. Give me
Cool.
one second here.
Oh,
Can you all see that?
yep.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, the hand drawing was that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, we actually, so my name's Tom Kyman. I'm the developer. Well, I'm a partner with Jim Cook, who's also on the phone.
Hello.
We are Jim's, it looks like Jim's showing up as an iPhone. So I'm gonna have
Sorry.
to figure out how to get his name on there for him. Jim is actually the owner of the Emos next to the Meadows as well. Jim and I are also the co-developers of the Junction in Wentzville, Missouri, which is a mixed-use development valued just north of $50 million. We've got 180 units of multifamily. There's a hotel piece, which is 84 rooms. And then Jim has his Sugar Fire there as well. And then recently finished the Junction House, Fred Hull's Junction House. So that's kind of one of our landmark projects that we like to highlight and talk about, especially in terms of look and feel and quality. And that is a great example of where this meeting, I hope, is headed. That meeting was that project is a great high-level coordination with the city of Wentzville, the Alder folks there, and the way that they wanted the building to look and feel, and the streets and the roads and the lighting. And it was a PUD, planned unit development, and it was a great collaboration. So that's the downtown historical district of Wentzville. So those buildings have a lot of historical features. With the way that the brick and the cornice and the way everything returns and light fixtures and so on and so forth. So with that being said, we're very interested. For the record, I tried to purchase the Synergy project. Unfortunately, it did not work out. So when you can't buy them, you compete with them. So reached out to Paul, first got the property under contract with Steve, and appreciate everything he's done, for Lake St. Louis and the development of the mall and everything. He's done a great job out there. And we want to be a part of it. So reached out to Paul and just started talking about look and feel and density and site planning and, you know, all that good stuff. So what you see today in front of you is probably 3 months worth of conversations. You know, where we started, what we thought would fit and this, that, and the other, and kind of where we've gotten to, you know, which I think if you look at the top right, I'm assuming it's the top right for everybody else. I believe when the city kind of went through their updated comprehensive plan, the public feedback was, hey, make a building look similar to that at this location. So I think we've done a pretty effective job in doing that. I'm really excited about the quality features, the stone, the brick, the cornices. I hope you guys are too. I mean, I'm really, really excited about it, very proud of it. Can't wait to actually build it and fill it, you know, be successful. So I think all of our interests are aligned. I think having more people and residents in that area, you know, to support the mall, I think it's just, it's, you know, all of our interests are aligned. So, you know, right now, I think we've been able to figure out a site plan. I know Paul doesn't want to talk about details of the site plan, but I think we've figured out a product that would bring about 168 units to this area, which is just on slightly more than 7 acres. Most of the units would be 1 bedrooms, so we'd have about 108 1 bedrooms, and we'd have 60 2 bedrooms. So as you can probably tell from that unit mix, we're really focused on seniors, young professionals. We're not real focused on, you know, huge amounts of family and kids and those kinds of residents. So we really don't overburden the school district with our product type that, you know, that we like to shoot for. So, you know, the rents, you know, they're decent, you know, between 1,100 and 1,200 for the ones, and probably 1,500 to 1,600 for the twos. So they're very similar to mortgage payments. So there's no Section 8, there's no subsidized housing, there's none of that. I mean, this is you know, folks that are likely making an income of $70,000 to $75,000 or more per year. So. So yeah, that's where we're at. You know, I really appreciate Paul putting us on the agenda for this. We don't like to push projects through with cities or city officials that say, hey, we really don't want that and really don't like it. We like to do things where the city wants what we want and likes the look and the feel of the buildings that we like to bring forward. You know, prefer to have a very supportive approach in the zoning and the project execution versus an adversarial type relationship. So I did sit on the meeting. I did hear there seemed to be, you know, supportive. I can't remember how many months ago that was, probably 2.5 maybe or so months ago, where I think your group talked about, hey, you know, bring in, you know, a higher density, you know, more people, multifamily project to this location. Seemed to be supportive, and it seemed to be supportive with a really high-end development, which I think we're going to bring forward here. We are going to be significantly different than Synergy. You know, as you can tell from the look and feel of this building, it doesn't look like a barrack. It doesn't look like dormitory. It looks like high-end residential. So we will also have a significant clubhouse. You know, that'll probably be 2,500 square feet. We'll have a really cool pool. You know, you know, the Synergy doesn't have a very significant pool. It's very, very small. But we're going to have a very significant pool, similar to the pool that we've got out at the Junction, which is, frankly, one of the largest pools out in St. Charles County. So,
Well, Tom, we can't give you too much tonight, but I can go back to the open houses and remember what the residents were, you know, in the surveys and what they preferred, and it looks like you hit the mark. It's a beautiful building from my perspective at this point. Like I said, we have to go through planning and zoning and get their recommendation. But as far as I'm concerned, this looks like a project that would be advantageous to the city and beautify the city some. So looks good.
And John, thank you very much. You know, in these buildings will be very close to the highway too. So, I mean, you know, be attractive as people are driving up and down, you know, Highway 40 and kind of attracting them in. So appreciate those comments. Thank you.
No problem.
I've got one question. This is Gary Turner. What's your first name again?
Tom.
Tom?
Yes, sir.
The view from the highway, will it be similar to what we see as an architectural view or what?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I really like.
Very, very similar front and back. We don't always do that, but I think for this location, I think that's something we need to do. It was a great question.
Well, I like what you've got here very much, and I only have one more question. Do you have any relatives in St. Charles County?
A ton.
Do you know? I know some Kymans, that's why I asked.
All of the Kymans in Old Monroe, Troy, St. Charles County, we are all related. My grandfather is the one that cut the N off the back end. So a lot of the Kymans have two ends, but we're all related. One way, shape, or form. So if you don't like any of them, let me know.
No, that's fine.
Looks like the tree they're on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tom, I have a couple of questions. First of all, Alderman Bernard, thank you for emos. You cooked dinner for us the other night, as a matter of fact.
Thank you.
Anyway, any thoughts of possibly bringing any more restaurants or even a hotel somewhere? I mean, that's something we could certainly use in this city.
Probably not on this
Well,
site.
not on that side, obviously, but.
Right. I mean, we like, you know, it's great when you establish a working relationship with a city and then all of a sudden, you know, things blossom and other things seem to kind of pop up. And, you know, if we do a quality project and you like it, next thing you know, we're saying, hey, why don't you look over there? And, you know, what are we going to do? You know, I think right now from this site location is just going to be pure multifamily,
Right.
you know, again, with the clubhouse and the pool. And we're going to also, something I didn't hit on, but we're going to work with MoDOT to do more of like a beautification and some walking trails and things like that, you know, along the exit ramp there. And I've been talking to Paul, if we're going to do that, we want to create this walking vibe for the whole development. Is, you know, tying into the mall and just sidewalks. And he mentioned, what is it, Paul, 2023, that maybe some of the sidewalk improvement plans and things are going to be implemented. So it's interesting to hear the budget, you know, kind of where the city wants to spend money, and sidewalks are really important for us, and walkability. Creating a walkability from our development into the mall, that'll just be really attractive for our residents and probably be really attractive for the mall. So,
Yeah, Tom, those sidewalks are going to get fixed when we repave that street. I think it's in that 23 timeframe, but I wouldn't, you know, that's real close to when it's going to be. Derek's on the line. Derek can tell us.
Yeah, I thought it was 2024. I can look it up and get back to you.
and so just from a timing perspective for us, you know, I think we're ready. You know, we really wanted to hear your input tonight. You know, because it's gonna cost us $150,000, get these plans ready, get everything like really going, get it submitted. So we wanted to hear feedback. We certainly didn't want to spend that money without you all saying, hey, we like it. Let's work together on it. So, but from a timing perspective, you know, if we continue to hear positive feedback, I think we're going to push forward as fast as we can, you know, hoping for, you know, some level of approvals, you know, April timeline.
Good.
At the same time, I mean, it'll take us about 12 months to bring the first set of buildings online, and it'll take us about 18 months to finish the project. So, I mean, we could be looking at April of 22 to start bringing the first units online. The rest of the units should be online September, October of 22. So.
Yeah, I
So-
think it fits really well with what we've been looking for, and fits with already what's at the Meadows, and anything that can bring more life, bring restaurants to the Meadows. Actually, we do have an opening there where the old pasta house used to be, so if you're looking for a spot. But no, I think this is perfect.
Yeah.
Looks really good.
Hey, Jim, Jim's also one of the part owners of Prados there. Can you kind of comment on maybe how Synergy and Prados, any comments there, Jim?
Yeah, as we spoke, Tom, a couple times, the COVID was pretty tough on restaurants, but we kind of made it through July and August, and we've seen, and we attribute some of the growth that we're seeing at Prados right now, and that restaurant will survive. We're working with Mayor Cohen to lock down a more favorable lease, which I think we're going to do. And coming out of the COVID, as we are now, we believe that Synergy, bringing some of the people to the Meadows through their apartment complex, absolutely has helped Prados. Our Emos also is thriving right now, and we just signed a lease with an optometrist who will be taking the unit next to the Emos. So a gentleman that's been in business, he lives in Lake St. Louis, and he's going to have 2 locations, one in South County and one here in Lake St. Louis. So we're very bullish out there right now. As I mentioned, Prados is doing great, and Emos is doing great, and we're excited to see what the future brings.
Good. I like Prados, really enjoyed it. I'm glad you weathered the pandemic.
Thank
Hey,
you.
guys, Derek just texted me that street project is scheduled for 2025.
Oh,
So it's a little bit further out than what we thought.
yeah.
Maybe we can work together to move that up in the priority list, Paul.
Well, you'll have to talk to George.
It's not really a priority issue. That's when federal funds are available.
Oh, funds, okay.
Hey, Derek, real quick, is this something that could be tied in with this Great Rivers Greenway? I know that they've been wanting to try to put a trail across the county. I don't know if this would be something that we could work with in tandem with them on that.
Got it.
They have some trail alignments they've been looking at. I don't think this is really very close to any of those.
Okay. But it's still more trails, and people do like those here. And any improvement you do to the highway, people like that, because we hear a lot about, they don't like the way the highway looks. So especially the on and off ramps.
Well, the good thing about your project with the sidewalks is it ties into our sidewalk
Mhm.
emphasis and plan that came from the comprehensive plan. So I'm sure that there's some adjustments that can be made that we can probably move that up, I would think, Derek, to coincide with some of the other initiatives that people want and we've talked about.
Kathy?
Yes.
Kathy,
Hi, Mike.
Hi, how you doing? I like your product. I have a question, and it bothers me, not for this project, but just overall. They have built a ton of apartments in St. Charles County and St. Louis County. Is there a demand for that many?
There's a high demand, Mr. Potter. St. Charles County vacancy, the vacancy rate's about 3%.
Okay.
So I think what you're also seeing, because of the pandemic, you're seeing people leaving the city. You're seeing people, fleeting out to St. Charles County. People like a little bit more space. They like the things that we're talking about, right? They like walking trails. They like being able to walk to retail. But they like that open space. So
I understand. I think you have a good product here that's gonna beat your competitor in the center. But I just was wondering, because every place you drive, they got apartment buildings being built. I mean, really.
So just to give you a little perspective, our Winsville project, we are at this point in time, we've delivered 132 units. It's a 180 unit development. We are 40% ahead on our lease up right now.
Good.
I mean, and it's purely, all of our sites that we pick, they need to be very strategic. So our site here at Lake St. Louis, we've got like several boxes that we're checking, and we view it as a very strategic site. See it from the highway, the walking trails, the mall. So just a number of different things that we think kind of sets us aside. So ultimately, Synergy is going to fill up, and it's probably going to be, full, I would say, by probably June of this year.
Really?
So then, they're already at about 65%, occupancy. So, by the time we start bringing these units online, they're going to be, basically 98%, occupied. And then, the people that, don't want to go there clearly are going to come here. I think people will come here first because of, some of our amenities. I think the pool and the fitness center and our, the walking, the trails, everything that we're going to create, I think are going to set us apart. But, just to give you a sense, myself and Jim are the guys that sign on the bank loan. So we feel very comfortable. I mean, this is going to be a $25 million investment for us. We hope that by the time it's done and it's filled, it's worth well more than that. But, we're going to be signing on a $20 million bank loan, and we feel very, very comfortable that this thing is going to be successful and it's going to fill up. So.
Hey, just to chime in too, everything that Tom has mentioned has been backed up by numerous market studies. So we've engaged a couple companies to go out and back up everything that we're seeing and hearing with, market studies. So, and we have those and can provide those if anybody wants them. Just showing more specific the St. Charles market, the St. Louis market, and what's going on out here and where they think this market will project a number of units that it will handle. So we believe we're well within that, not putting ourselves at risk of anything.
So to that point, I mean, we analyze weekly the St. Charles market weekly. We've already increased our rents over in Wentzville twice, just based on demand and people and, everything that we're seeing on a consistent basis. So
There's not a lot of houses out there on the market. It's a huge demand out there. And if you can buy a house, you're overpaying for it right now.
Well, a lot of our tenants too are people that, want to build in the area, and they need a year to kind of figure that out. So they're trying to find a home, build a home, a new development, and, they stay with us until they can figure that all out. So.
And I think a lot of people are seeing that too, that they're waiting a while to even get something built. I know that our numbers with our building permits are way up, but I can tell you from experience, trying to buy a house, it's difficult, and there's not a lot of houses coming on the market right now. And they go, if they're nice, they're going fast. I think people have a lot of reasons why they're renting.
Mhm.
Okay, well, Tom, I think I'm hearing the board likes what they see, and let's just keep moving ahead with it.
Yep.
Good.
Jason, I got to say, I like your background. I love that American flag and support the blue. Our family's been a big supporter of backstoppers for many years.
I thank you very much, sir. I love your hockey jerseys in the back as well. I played many years of hockey.
Oh, we'll have to have some beers and talk about the hockey.
That's the second best sport in the world next to soccer. So you guys are all right.
Yeah. They still have their two front teeth, so that's a good thing.
Well, thanks for having us, guys. We really appreciate it.
Very nice.
Paul has all my contact information. If anybody wants to talk about anything, details, layouts, anything you all want to see, talk about, we 100% open, transparent, want to work with you guys on everything. So thank you.
Forward to working with you. Great.
Yep. Maybe some
Thanks,
pizza.
Tom.
coupons.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jim. You guys have a good evening.
I'll send the pizza up there tomorrow.
All right, excellent.
The pizza's
Yeah.
coming tomorrow.
How about tonight? We're working late tonight.
Tonight, you give me the address, it's there.
We got several
Yeah,
addresses here.
That's all right.
Okay, I owe you.
Maybe next
All
time.
right.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks,
you.
guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the development code and the zoning map update. So Louis has a presentation. Let's go through that presentation, then have a talk. So Louis, can you start us off?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have a formal presentation. I'll just go through these slides and use them as some talking points. We've gone over a lot of this previously, so I'll focus on some of the remaining issues that we need to work out before we make the final revisions and bring it to you for final approval. So this is the proposed zoning map, which you've seen many times by now. Just a little bit of background, we did make some changes to the first draft of the zoning map, which was published back in 2020. Those are all shown on this map. We made a total of 5 changes, numbers 1 through 5 on this slide. Numbers 6 through 10, those were requests that we received from individual property owners, but after discussion with the board, the consensus was to leave those as they were. After the public hearing with P&Z, P&Z did recommend approval of the development code and the zoning map. They had one condition, and that was to recommend to the Board of Aldermen to change this property on Lake St. Louis Boulevard at Hawk Ridge Circle, to change it from CO to C1. And just to note that the property owner was actually requesting C2. So before I get into the specific request for zoning changes, I wanted to give a little bit more of an overview on some of the difference between the proposed commercial districts. So this first slide compares the C1 and the C2 commercial districts. Today, those are called the CB community business and the highway commercial zoning districts. So the C1 and C2 are the proposed names. Everything in the blue box are uses that are treated the same in both of those zoning districts. So on the left-hand side, these are all permitted uses in both of those zoning districts. And then down here, these are special uses in both of these zoning districts. So really the main differences between these two are these uses on the right-hand side. So this first group are examples of uses that are permitted in C2, but that are special use in C1. So they could be allowed, they just require a special use permit in C1. These are mostly auto-oriented types of uses like car washes, repair shops, lots, gasoline stations. And then also some more uses that may or may not be appropriate closer to residential, like landscape supply stores, some small scale manufacturing, and veterinary clinics and hospitals. This group are uses that are permitted in C2, but prohibited altogether in C1. So those are auto sales, building materials and supplies, and liquor stores. And then this last group are special uses in C2, but prohibited. So congregate care facilities. This got cut off, but it's a commercial horse stable. Multi-unit buildings that are age restricted, those would only be a special use in C2 and not allowed in C1. Then major utility. The next slide is a comparison between the commercial office, C1 and C2. Commercial office is essentially what the BP Business Park zoning district is today. So here the comparison is a little more difficult since you're dealing with 3 different zoning categories. C1 and C2 are more similar just in the sense that C1 is closer to residential, so some uses are either prohibited or require a special use permit when compared to C2. The CO district is a little more unique. Its main focus is on land uses that have a high number of employees, so job creators like office uses, and then some other land uses that serve or complement those employment centers. So again, the same thing here. These uses in the blue are permitted or special uses in all of those zoning districts. These three are special uses in all, and then these are permitted or special uses in all. So the main difference are these uses that are in the darker blue. So for example, a congregate care facility, those are a special use in C1 and C2, but sorry, C1, CO or C2, but those will be prohibited in C1. This group of uses are permitted or special uses in C1 and C2, but prohibited in CO. Some examples are convenience stores, grocery stores, liquor stores, multi-unit buildings that are age restricted. And then these group of uses are permitted in CO, but not in the other commercial districts. So things like data centers, hospitals, some manufacturing, research and development facilities. Again, those job creators are specifically allowed in CO. So there's 4 requested zoning changes we'll talk about tonight. We've already talked previously about 3 of these a few times. And then at the last meeting, we mentioned the 4th one, but we didn't talk in much detail about that one. But I have some slides with some information as we go through the conversation. So this is the property at Lake St. Louis Boulevard and Hawk Ridge Circle in Fremont. It's a little over 1 acre and it's currently vacant. The current zoning is highway commercial, and the proposed zoning map is commercial office, which is the light pink you see for the other properties surrounding it. P&Z recommended C1, and the applicant was requesting C2. So I'll pause here if you want to discuss this one.
Well, at planning and zoning, it was determined that we should make the change to C1 based on the fact that it was less restrictive. And I voted for that, but I've kind of changed my mind a little bit after looking all through this and what could be there, and especially what the owner requested in C2, basically a gas station, I believe. And I thought I heard, maybe I'm wrong, I thought I heard a lot of the aldermen saying that they were opposed to that sort of thing. So,
Well, I think it should be CO since the rest of the property around it is commercial office and would be in keeping with, consistent with the zoning around it.
Yeah.
And it'd be problematic what he wants to do when he talks about a gas station there.
right, I agree with that, and that's where I was getting to. I think that's probably appropriate to not make the change and stay where it was at CO.
I agree with both Gary and John. I didn't vote for this at planning and zoning. I felt that the CO was appropriate. I just didn't think a gas station really would fit there. I think it'd be a traffic issue too, how it's currently set up.
Hey, Tom, he's probably our only planning and zoning member on the board. What was the thought process by the rest of the board to going to C1 on this one?
Well, I think from what I recall it's currently zoned highway commercial. And when the owner came in and talked, I mean, going from highway commercial to CO, you are dramatically reducing the value of that property, I think was the opinion of a lot of the commissioners. And that's why we thought C1 was kind of a good middle ground. It would allow different opportunities for him as an owner and still give us some control, because, you know, you mentioned the gas station. The gas station is not an approved C1 item. It would be a special use permit, which would require it to go through the commission again, as well as the, as well as the Board of Aldermen for approval. So there'd be plenty of time to stop something like a gas station without completely tying the guy's hands.
Well, I think you can see, Tom, that, there's next to the bank, all those professional offices are under construction, at least one is. That's what it's supposed to be. And then along Hawk Ridge Circle, as you know, that large one was done last year before. So in keeping with the commercial office concept, it seemed incongruous for it to be C1 or C2. And also, when we went to the comprehensive plan, when we had all the citizen input, we realized that we had way too much land that was zoned commercial or highway commercial that really, in my opinion and others, was more than what we needed, and also negated the value of existing commercials on some of the existing businesses. So that's why I feel CO should be the proper one, just like John said.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that, Gary. I'm just relaying what I recall from the zoning meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think that's correct.
I think he's just got, it's such a weird shaped lot. I'm not sure what he could do with it.
Well, we've discussed this at length. What does everybody else think, so we can get this, get a decision and move on?
Lewis, one question, even say it was zoned for a gas station, with the way the land sits now, without buying our land, could he actually put one in there?
It's hard to say, since we haven't, seen a plan where they actually try to use that within the existing property boundaries. When we met with them one time, the conversation involved incorporating the city's property to make that feasible. Not to say that they can't, but I would say it'd be extremely difficult to fit a gas station, given the lot size and the shape.
Sure, you can put hardly anything in there, looking at the shape.
That's a weird shape.
We have a lot of other pieces. Technology has a lot of different zoning designation right now, between C1, C2, multifamily.
And Gary Turner, and if the other Gary was here, the only other question I would ask is, you're very involved with your ward, and you know what they want there and what they don't want there. What is it in C1 that you don't think that they would want, since a gas station I don't think can go into C1? What is the other part they wouldn't want?
Well, I think they expect the type of office construction that's been in the rest of it. I don't want to go back through the wars when we talked about the apartments that were there on the corner that were approved, but they feel it should be a continued office type construction that we see around the circle, as well as next to the, Great Southern Bank. So, it's finally taking off, that type of office construction, and they are concerned about traffic, I will tell you that. And, obviously regular type offices can be accommodated. And as far as the shape of the lot.
So are we saying that anything other than an office, they're going to be upset?
Well, but there's an owner next door who could, we own the lot next door to them. So it's something that they can still do offices, and if they needed more space, I'm sure the city would maybe think about it, because when we originally bought that, it was so we could get Frymouth Lane done and possible realignment of Frymouth and Hawkwood Circle, but based on my memory.
Yeah, and I understand how it's difficult in that area, but I understand what Tom was saying from the thought process of planning and zoning, going from, highway commercial all the way to CO.
Right.
I get that aspect too. And I didn't know if there was a compromise of some sort.
Well, right
It
now.
does allow a lot. CO allows quite a bit. It just wouldn't allow a gas station.
Yeah.
And I would note that, so the Great Southern Bank property, the city's property to the west, and that part of the Muck property to the east, on the east side of Lake St. Louis Boulevard, those are all currently zone HC as well. So they're subject to the same change that this property is.
I mean, you could have a restaurant even in the CO. You can have, bank, bar, lounge. That's probably what they want, Gary, is a bar. Hotel, medical or dental clinics, microbrewery. There's quite a few. Church.
There's a lot of things, and I know Brad Doss called me and he seemed to indicate, well, this is the only thing that could really go there, and that's not correct.
No.
Plenty of things that could go there. And furthermore, since everything around it is CO, it's what I would call spot zoning. If it wasn't.
You can say the same thing on technology right now. We've made some zoning changes over there, and it's between CO, C1, C2, multifamily. So I think the guy's he's got a bad spot there.
So are we in agreement on a CO?
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe we need what's everyone think? Let's get a vote then. Karen?
I would be fine with the C1 just so we can get rid of it, but I'm going to defer to the will of the board and let them decide.
I'm good with the C1, but again, it's up to the board.
Well, that's why we're asking you. You got to vote
we
which
gotta have
way
to
you
vote.
want it. CO is not more restrictive than C1 like I previously thought. So, and I'm agreeing with Gary that CO should be the choice, but that's my vote.
And obviously mine's CO, and I know that Gary Tarline is not here, but I can't vote for him, but I know he would support it.
Yeah.
I'm at C1 and then, that's up to Mike. How about you?
C1.
I'm at C1 also.
And I guess I can't break it because we don't have Gary Torlina here, but I would be CO.
I don't think we have enough to even vote here, do we?
We've been talking about this for months.
I know.
It keeps going back and forth. Let's get together and make a decision here. What is the right?
No, I agree. And I think planning and zoning did a lot of work into this. And I think it's something that we should pay attention to.
Well, the other thing, when they came to planning and zoning, they said, the developers said, or whoever owns that property said that they brought a plan to the city for a gas station. And when I talked to the city, talked to Lewis's office, they had never brought any detailed plan to about a gas station. So that was part of the reason I think planning and zoning voted for it, because they really thought there was some plan that was brought, but it just was never voted on. But that really wasn't the case.
Right. And that's why I originally voted for C1 until I got a good idea of what I was, after the P&Z meeting, which I was a part of. After I looked at it, I think that was kind of, I don't think a whole lot of thought was put into it. It was just, someone said it would be less restrictive to be C1, and everybody but Kathy voted for it. So I've had a chance to look at it, and it looks like what I'm thinking and what Gary's thinking, and I know Gary Torlina too, that CO would be the appropriate choice, but
Or we can wait until next meeting and do we need to decide this tonight or?
well, how many months we've been talking about
We've been
this?
talking about it for a while. I'm worried that the man, we have a planning and zoning board for a reason. And it is a very odd shaped lot. And I think what we are doing, we're going back to talking about spot zoning. And basically we're cutting down the chances of him being able to sell this lot.
I don't agree with you.
Okay.
And I knew you wouldn't, but I mean,
Sure.
there's lots over on technology that are all different just because they're not all
How
consistent.
many,
Yeah, so
there
I
aren't
just,
that many different technology. And now,
Right.
and what's the difference? Can anybody tell me the difference on C1 and CO? Why is it less restrictive?
yeah, it's less restrictive, but we've got technology.
One would allow a gas station, CO would not. What's some other things? Let's see. Prohibited in CO is animal grooming, automobile wash, automotive repair shop, automotive sales, not that that would be, building materials, horse stable, parking lot, convenience store, that is prohibited in CO, and I don't think that fits there either. Equipment sales, garden supply store, gasoline station, grocery store, landscape supply, liquor store, medical marijuana dispensary, membership club, multi-unit building, age restricted, that really wouldn't probably fit in that property. Personal services, repair facility minor, self-storage facility, utility major, or veterinary clinic and hospital. The restaurant would be allowed in CO, just something like a convenience store, a gasoline station, automobile, like a wash, automobile wash would not be permitted there. Those are just some of the things.
Yeah, Jason? This is
Yeah,
Gary.
go ahead, Gary.
You had asked what the residents were concerned about, and that's exactly it. They want the existing type of office construction and those type of businesses to be there because of concern of traffic, concern of they feel like, well, first of all, it's could be an employment place because all those offices right now that are built employ quite a few people. And that's a good thing, I think, for the city that we have employment locations, not just residential. So, and I'm sure there are other places that we can have restaurants and gas stations. So it's the character of the office park, if I can use a term which we now call CO, is what they want to retain. And that was pretty clear to both Gary and I in our last subdivision meeting with them. That's the 5 subdivisions we meet with monthly.
Okay, well, you guys had more votes than us, so, right? Or,
Well, can I make a suggestion so that we can have a bill ready for us to hopefully act upon, since we've been discussing it for a long time, like John mentioned, that we have it as CO and at least have it in a form that we can vote on. And if we wanted to take one section out and vote on it separately, like we're talking about tonight, you could always do that.
I could also make it C1. And
Yeah, in other words, if you wanted to
Go backward.
amend that, then we could have a vote at that time. And, you said we got the votes. I don't know. I think we do, but that's beside the point. I'm just trying to move along because with these other things, we hold this up and people don't know what we're doing.
Right. Okay.
And I think not only for our residents, but for the property owners, so they know where they're at.
Yeah, I think one of the problems is we maybe haven't had everybody at every meeting, so that's the last several meetings, so I think that's kind of been an issue too.
Now, just because you make it CO doesn't guarantee it's gonna be an office building.
Right.
Oh, no, I was mentioning there's a lot of other uses like hotel, well, restaurant.
I know, but if all you're saying is that people want, all Gary was saying, and I'm not making a point of it, is they want an office building there. Well, if we make it CO, there's no guarantee that it's gonna be office building.
No, it's just other things that it would not be then.
Right.
There isn't much that is not, most of them, I'm not for a gas station, so that's a special use permit.
Right. And it's it's a weird shaped lot. And I think we're so restricting this man to be able to sell this property. And I think it's just unfair.
Well, you look at all the uses and you could probably say that because
Probably, yeah.
when I look at what's in C1, the other things, grocery store,
Sure.
I guess you could put a liquor store there. Garden supply store, convenience store, maybe I don't know, I guess maybe you could put a convenience store, but typically a convenience store has a gas station.
Well, and you got
I know
permitted,
another Dollar General, Gary.
you got permitted in special use in CO that says there's a data center, hospital, light manufacturing, medical marijuana testing facility, which by the way, was allowed in this area to begin with and still basically is by permit, and research and development. So there certainly are other things besides just straight professional office buildings.
No, yeah. And you know what? I don't think people are going to be building a lot of offices right now.
Or in the future.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Yep.
Well,
I don't think I'm going to change my vote.
I'm not changing mine.
All right, so then I'll leave that as the P and Z had recommended with the change to C1.
Yeah, we can amend it if Gary votes and
let's do that so we can get this update on the zoning, get this zoning complete.
Okay, so the next property is on Technology Drive. This is on the north side of Technology. This is the property that's owned by the entity that owns the cottages at Lake St. Louis. It's currently zoned HC, highway commercial. The proposed zoning is R5. The property owner had requested C2, which is the corresponding zoning district to HC. But I did receive an email, and I think everyone was copied on that. That they were requesting or saying that they would be satisfied with a zoning of CO, commercial office.
I agree.
I think that, I agree.
Okay.
No problem.
Good.
That was easy.
All right. The next one is property by Richard and Maria Hill. This is on Lake St. Louis Boulevard between Technology and Estates Court. This property has an approved development plan. It's currently zoned PD plan development. The proposed zoning was R1 PUD. The applicant was requesting mixed use, MU. After some discussions with the applicant, we're recommending that it be CO, commercial office, but still a PUD. So really the only thing that changes is that if there's some sort of requirement that's not addressed on his development plan, like setbacks or building height or permitted uses, then it would refer back to that, the CO zoning district. But he's still entitled to develop the property as it's shown on that approved development plan.
I'm fine with that.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Yep.
Hey.
All right.
Yep.
And then this one, we talked about it a little bit at our last meeting. These are the properties owned by the CA on Civic Center Drive. It's actually 3 separate parcels, but it's a little over 10 acres. Jefferson Point is on the one portion of the property, and the remainder is vacant. The future land use map recommended these properties be conservation and open space. The current zoning is community business. It's a commercial district. And the proposed zoning is PA public activity, which is the same zoning as the lake and some of the marinas. The applicant is requesting C1, which is essentially to retain the same zoning that it is now.
Hey, guys, I got a thought on this. I want to jump in here. The CA owns a property over at Edgewater. Lewis and I talked about that property and the fact that it's zoned a PUD, but it has an underlying zoning of public activity. But we can still make that Edgewater property a commercial property. And Lewis, I thought maybe we could do the same thing here. Can you explain how that would work, even though it's zone PA, that if they came in with a PUD, we could approve a commercial PUD?
So the only places where we've are recommending PUDs are existing developments that were zone PD or PR, planned residential.
Okay.
They have a valid development plan that was previously approved.
Okay. So I misspoke. Never mind.
That's all right. It was a good idea. But
I should have talked to you about that today.
That's all right. We just, and some applicants have requested a PUD for vacant properties or properties that weren't zone plan district. But we actually wrote it in the code that that was kind of the formula we were following for assigning those zoning designations.
Okay. Yeah, makes perfect sense. So sorry for interrupting.
I'm sorry, I have a question. So the way it is zoned today, that means, what could they have on it today, Lewis? I guess
Yeah, so if you look on the zoning map, this C1 right here.
No, I mean, before we changed it, before we changed it to this,
Public activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did they have before on public activity?
It says it's,
Community business is what it was.
yeah, it's
I
what
mean, community business, they couldn't have like a store or something like that today, could they?
Yeah, so community business is what Schnucks, that area is zoned. So you can have grocery stores, banks, restaurants, offices.
Okay.
I just don't ever see them doing anything with this. Don't they have to have a vote of the people in order?
Yeah, that's, I mentioned that to the couple of the board members. I can't see them ever getting, maybe a restaurant, but about a lot of other uses, I don't know if I see that, but.
And I doubt.
And I don't, have you looked at that property too? Other than that part that's down there by Jefferson Point, that would really be hard to develop because I think that creek runs through, kind of cuts it in half back there from where you see the lake come in, but.
Like wetlands back there, but yeah, I mean, they're not planning on getting rid of Jefferson Point, are they? I mean, would they ever?
I've talked to a couple of the board members and their fear is that they think maybe at some point they could turn it into a restaurant and the city's taking that away from them.
What to a restaurant?
To the Jefferson Point.
The whole point?
I guess so.
Away the dock and, I mean, take away that dock and stuff.
In the park that they spent all the money on?
And if it's a private restaurant, serving members of the CA.
Yeah.
And I was going to go talk to them and to try to discuss it with them that, what could happen if it stayed highway commercial or what. But I don't think they get our different zonings, and I think there's a lot of confusion in there.
Yeah. Just like we didn't prohibit when they put that bar in. Normally that bar, that wouldn't have been zoned for a little bar, but since it was part of the CA, other than having the building code, up to the building code, that was the only thing we got involved in. So But I think, and this is what I heard their attorney say, if they ever wanted to sell it, that we were tying their hands and that the CA members would not like it. But I'd say those CA members, there's probably a very limited number of things that they would want that to be sold for.
I have a question. What is public activity allowed, Louis? When we say recommended to zone it PA, public activity, what does that mean?
Yeah, so that, so all of the city's parks, government buildings, the fire district properties, those are all zone PA. You can do some commercial uses like daycares. You can do churches, but it's mostly restricted to public or semi-public facilities and not necessarily commercial uses.
If it's currently community business, I mean, if they wanted to do, if they're thinking about a restaurant, wouldn't the new zoning CO cover that for them?
Yeah.
I mean, we could do, I mean, I doubt if they're ever going to develop it, but what would be the harm to change it from community to business to CO?
I agree. And then they don't feel like we're taking away their ability to have a
Right.
restaurant.
Right. And that would limit some other things.
I agree with CO also, but I don't think.
Microbrewery there.
I don't think the middle section, I don't think is a developable.
I don't either.
No, I agree.
Entrance.
Hey, Karen, I'll agree with you if you agree with me on the other.
I'll think about it.
That's called horse trading.
Yeah.
So, I don't care. We got enough votes for CO.
I want a horse.
CO. I'm for CO.
CO, I'm CO. Yep, I think.
For them.
I'm
I'll
okay with that.
One thing, I'm not sure if CO would allow the use for Jefferson Point as, marina, private park.
Oh,
I'll have to double check on that.
okay.
It's grandfathered.
Yeah, but you would be creating a non-conforming.
Oh, I mean, can that be carved out?
So community business allows a gas tax?
A what?
Their current zoning, would it allow the gas tax? Or whatever he just said?
Not that, I don't believe so. Obviously.
But they don't have a gas dock there.
Or whatever, a dock or whatever.
I mean,
I just assumed community business came from vestige of the community association, and that's what they used when they set it up.
I have no idea.
So Louis, wouldn't that be non-conforming as well over there at the gas pumps?
So if they're actually on the lake, then that's NPA already. I'm not sure exactly where the property lines lay.
Well, I think if they were smart, they would, if they wanted to put a restaurant in, which I think is fine, they're only going to be able to put it there at that off of Civic Center, or at or tear out the
Pavilion?
Yeah, pavilion and whatever else they got down there. Have you ever been on that middle section? It's bad. I don't know how they could build on it.
Yeah, it looks like a creek runs through it.
Yeah. And I would love to go to a restaurant that's right next to the lift station. That would be special.
That's what I was going to say. That I remember working on that lift station when it was being constructed. I didn't realize that property around it was owned by the CA.
Yeah, and you can. I smelled it yesterday leaving City Hall, so it was acting up yesterday.
They weren't there? Because usually the only time I notice is when they're there dumping.
I don't know. I went in the other direction, but I could smell it coming out. I figured it had to be the lift station.
Probably was.
Yeah.
But it's gotten better since they put that in.
Oh, yeah.
Really bad.
Yeah, way better. I don't think we've had any issues in the moorings either. I mean,
So then is the consensus CO?
yeah, CO,
I'm okay with CO.
yeah. And that would,
Yeah.
and hopefully that would do what they needed to do, right? If they're wanting to make a change. I mean, there's, I think it's a pipe dream that they think they're gonna be able to sell this and put something down there, but you know, they can.
Yeah,
Well,
and if,
I don't want
you
to.
know, if we could send a list over to them, hey, this is what's gonna be built on there. If
Yep,
you
that'd be a
sell
good
it to the
idea.
developer.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is kind of the consensus of the board, if we're going to do this.
You could send it to Heather and she could distribute to them. Good idea, Jason.
So what you're saying is put it down as CO, and if they got any objections, change it,
Right.
or vote on changing it, I should say.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Yep.
sounds like a plan.
Okay. That was the last of the zoning map changes. There's a few changes to the development code I wanted to run by you. Two of these are ones we've talked about previously, and then there's a couple minor items that came to our attention as we've been reviewing the code and using it to review development proposals that I also want to bring to your attention. So the first one is regarding fences. We talked about the procedure to request a yard fence. Our current procedure is to require that through the pre-annexation agreement, but the proposed code will allow an applicant to request that through a preliminary subdivision plat. There were some concerns from the board that existing subdivisions might be able to request that same sort of approval. So I added language, make it clear that you can't make that request after the preliminary plat has been approved, and that the approval or denial of those fence standards are the sole discretion of the Board of Aldermen.
I was on the blog recently and I there was just pages and pages. I actually took some pictures of it, some
Did you see the lady arguing with me, Karen?
oh yeah,
I should have let,
yeah,
I don't have to go to a board meeting. I gave you my opinion. Okay. I was going to mention, there are some people, but then there are a few other ones that said they were happy with the way the city was without the fences.
Right. Yeah, so it went on and on. Some people that were from other parts, other areas saying we didn't move here because of that. So it is a discussion out there. I can tell you that it is a ongoing discussion. Everybody knows my opinion. You know, I think if you keep.
I appreciate how Lois put that together because that's what I was thinking would be appropriate and fair.
Right.
And we're not going back to those that are already there. That wouldn't be fair to everybody. So.
Right.
And people are having a hard time understanding that. It's like, well, wait a minute, if they have it at Saratoga and some other places, then why don't we have it? Yeah, so
Well, I explained it, but nobody probably read it, so.
They don't, I mean, or they're just not going to pay attention. I found that I don't respond on those blogs just because they get so ugly.
They weren't mean. They weren't really too mean. I'm only on that one. I'm not on the nasty blog one.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it was pages and pages of it. I finally got tired of looking at it. So,
What are we gonna do?
I'm gonna defer to the will of the board on this one.
I think what we have right there is the best. We're not changing anything currently in place because I think, Mike, you brought it up with, like with the new Windsor Park, you've got people that bought there and maybe some would like it, but then there might be some that bought there knowing it and wouldn't. So this kind of sets the stage if it's a brand new one and they ask for a fence and we approve it with the preliminary plat, then everybody knows going in.
Be very specific on what kind of fences they are, like the black, whatever.
Right, those black, the ones that look like wrought iron, those aluminum ones, that would be what I would.
I mean,
would
I think
say.
I don't want us to have a bunch of different kind of fences. Like I said,
Oh gosh, like Highway K,
and see all.
Icy Road and K, yeah.
Okay, we've discussed this and this sounds like the appropriate thing to do. I think we
Sounds good.
go ahead.
We're with it.
Thank you, Louis.
Hey, out there.
Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Louis, for all the work on this.
Good job, Louis.
Yeah, deciphering what the board wants.
Good luck with that.
So this is the next one. We talked previously about these directional signs for residential developments. The developers at Windsor Park are requesting these, and they actually proposed the sign on the right-hand side. To my knowledge, they haven't reached out to the other subdivisions, but they were just including them as an example. Working with Derek, we drafted some regulations. We actually have some similar regulations in the existing code, so we're able to use those and update those. So these would only be eligible or only residential developments within the city limits would be eligible for these signs. When 8% or less of the buildable lots have been occupied, or when 80% or less of the units have been leased or sold. So once they crossed over that 8% threshold, they would need to start removing the signs. The signs are 32 square feet max and 12 feet max. They're required to list at least 4 and no more than 8 individual residential developments. So this example on the right has space for 4. And they had to be uniform, and that's going to be discretionary that staff will look at. They are supposed to be in the right of way and only at the intersection of arterial or collector streets. But then we do have some language that will give us discretion to approve them in other locations on a case-by-case basis. No more than 2 per intersection, and they had to be within 1.5 miles of the development that's advertised on the sign. So you can't have one on the other side of town advertising one on, the other side.
That makes sense.
Sounds good.
I'm fine with
Yeah.
them.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Good.
And is everyone okay generally with this type of design for the sign?
Yeah, I like that. That looks good.
Mhm. Good.
All right, we'll get back to them and let them know that, they can go in that direction.
And the developers they are aware that they're responsible for maintaining these signs? That we don't maintain the signs?
Right. Yeah, and actually, sorry, I jumped ahead. We do need your feedback on liability insurance requirements since they are going to be in the right of way. Derek, I wasn't sure if you want to jump in on that.
Yeah, we have currently 2 different sets of insurance requirements when people work within the right of way. The general right of way insurance requirement is the sovereign immunity limit for the state. It's just less than $3 million insurance. But for driveways, we let people doing driveway replacements only carry $1 million in insurance.
Right.
And in both cases, we require a $5,000 bond. Is there a preference for the construction component of the sign for them doing that work as to whether they have $1 million insurance or $3 million insurance?
I mean, how many of them carry that kind of insurance?
That's a lot.
Most of them do.
Oh, a developer probably, yeah, you're right. A developer
Yeah.
probably does.
I
Of a
would go with
person.
the lesser. I mean, it's not like, I would hope that they're not.
Yeah, the construction part might not be a big problem, particularly if they have a sign company do it.
Mhm.
The person that we've been talking to is not actually an employee of any of these builders. He's a marketer. And so he does contracts with the home builders. So he's not going to have this insurance. Maybe not even $1 million insurance, but he can hire a contractor to do that. $1 million is going to be pretty common for any contractor.
Okay.
$3 million is going to be pretty common for anybody that's a utility contractor or does roadway work, things like that.
I'm fine with the lesser amount.
I am too.
Go with it.
Yep.
Okay,
Good.
And then do you have any opinion that whether or not we need some sort of ongoing insurance or bond associated with the liability of having this thing in our right of way? Normally, improvements that are placed in right-of-way are done so by a utility company. So, that's a company with insurance and assets that we don't worry too much about a power pole being located in our right-of-way if somebody runs off the road and hits it with a car, because Quiver River's got insurance. But these folks may not. So it may be the city's liability if somebody has a crash associated with one of these signs.
What is your thought, Derek? Do you want us to have them have liability?
I don't know how practical it is. I think it's a consideration that you need to be comfortable with if you're going to allow them. I want you to be aware that that risk exists. I don't know that it's a big problem. I don't know that it's a big concern to have, but I just feel like you should know that it's there.
Would taking some kind of a bond help, or an escrow?
I think unless you've got a pretty hefty insurance policy, I don't know that it's going to matter. I'm not really worried about them looking dilapidated. We can just take them down.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
If something happens to them.
And we'll review them to follow, make sure that they're following the sign standards, that they're breakaway and that kind of thing. Although they can't really truly meet the breakaway standards, because we get into the same problems we had with the signs we wanted to put up in the roundabout. A sign that's configured like this, that doesn't have 6 feet of clear space underneath it, can't really meet the highway crash worthy standards. So if somebody hits it and, has an injury, there's a liability potential that they could be coming back to look.
Wait a minute now, Derek. You mean to tell me that if a guy runs off the highway on a curb, goes up on a curve and hits the sign and hurts himself, the city's liable?
Could be.
I don't understand that.
Could be. That's why all the highway signs, MoDOT's so strict with their highway signs and with the breakaway standards.
These are wood signs and they'll break away real easy.
Yeah.
Well, they will make sure they are drilled at the bottom so that they do break away, but you have that big panel there that comes all the way to the ground. So it doesn't really, if a sign is supposed to be 6 feet up above the ground so that a car can drive under it, so that it'll break away and just fly over the top of the car. This isn't going to do that.
Right.
Well, this isn't a highway either.
We don't know.
Derek, are you just asking us to make sure we weigh that option before we vote if we want to do it?
I just feel like I'm obligated to make you aware that this is a risk.
Okay.
So that you're aware of it if you approve these.
And
all right, thank you.
Hey, Derek, are these going to be shared by multiple developers? I mean, who's actually going to be responsible for these signs?
The
developers.
Person that puts it up will be responsible for it.
Maybe the one that would ensure that. Okay.
But they will also be obligated to let somebody else put their name on it. Because we don't want to foster, an arms race of signs around town.
Right. No, I agree.
Do we ask them to carry a liability insurance to cover that?
We could.
That way we're waived if somebody hits it and, goes through the windshield and kills them. We don't get blamed for it.
We definitely can ask them. That may be something that means these aren't practical to do.
Yeah. Well, nothing like legal to really mess everything up.
I apologize for.
Do you think we need Matt maybe to weigh in on this? Something to ask Matt about?
I'm here.
Oh, hey, Matt.
I just joined a few minutes ago and have heard part of this, but not all of it. Happy to weigh in to the extent that you want me to.
Well, that was the question. if somebody runs into the sign, drive, like Mike says, you drive off the road and somebody hits the sign and it goes through and kills somebody, who's responsible for this sign or for this injury?
Yeah, the issue really comes down to something that I would call the standard of care. And so if you have installed the sign in a manner that's consistent with the appropriate standards for doing it, then you ought to be okay.
Okay.
And it sounds silly to say that there would be standards for installing signs on the side of the road, but I'm sure Derek can tell you that there are all sorts of groups, industry, trade, otherwise, that put standards out there. And if things are done consistent with the standards, then the exposure for the city ought to be minimal to non-existent.
There's standards for mailboxes. We found that out a few years ago when we had to build a new one for my mother-in-law in Michigan. You can't have brick mailboxes up there. They had to be breakaway.
Right. So
Oh.
just to give you kind of a silly example, if you install a sign that's made out of steel and concrete and you put it a foot from the edge of the road, that's probably not going to be consistent with standards for installing signs. But if it's done 25 feet away from the road and it's made of material that will break or disintegrate, you know, whatever the standards are for safety,
Okay.
then I think your exposure is very limited and maybe non-existent. It's not going to stop somebody from suing you, but I think we've got protections there if you follow the standards.
Clear as mud, everybody?
Having heard that, I think we can march forward.
Yep.
Agreed.
I'm okay with it.
Yep. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks,
You're
Matt.
welcome.
Keep going.
Okay, these next few changes are minor ones that I've come across as we've been using the code to compare it or use it as we review development proposals, kind of testing it out. So these are things that were either not as clear as they could be in the initial drafts, or that we caught that maybe were missing or kind of inadvertently made their way in the code. So the first one is adding private golf course, tennis club, country club, or clubhouse as a permitted use in the PA district. This is an existing allowance that was just missed and was left out of the table. So that would be added back.
Right.
This one, the way our lot standards and our setback requirements, they're all based on the lot lines. But we'll see a lot of times with townhome developments or duplexes or multifamily, they might be a condominium, or they might have the lot lines follow the building footprint. So a lot of times there's some confusion on how we measure the setbacks in those instances. So the two images on the bottom kind of illustrate this. Imagine these are townhomes, they look the same, but one is a condominium on common ground, and then the other is fee simple individual lots.
Mhm.
So the purpose of this is to clarify in what, how to measure the setbacks in these cases to make sure that they're being treated the same. So that's essentially what it comes down to. We're defining what is the equivalent of a lot in the or when you have a condominium, when you have townhomes on individual lots, and those other circumstances, just so we're treating them all the same, no matter how they're platted.
I'm good with it.
And this, currently, the code says that you can't have more than one principal structure per lot. If you look at particularly multifamily developments, you have multiple buildings on a single lot. So in the earlier version, we did add that to allow those for certain types of land uses. The language wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be, so I did make some revisions to that, clarifying that that is permitted with the exception of detached houses. You can't have more than one detached house on a single lot, unless you're doing a planned unit development.
Okay.
And that.
The end.
Hey.
Wow.
Hey.
But I will make those revisions and then have those ready for for your first meeting in February.
Good job, Louis. That was a lot of work.
There you go,
Wow.
Louis.
Took a long time to get here.
Thanks for hanging in with us, Louis.
Anytime in this event, did you commit suicide?
He's still around, so. No, Louis does like baked goods, just so you know.
I would have if I were you.
I would have
Put
too.
up with us.
I might have some of my famous pumpkin bread, Louis. I might bring you some.
I'll take it.
I know it takes baked goods, so he likes that.
Are we adjourning for a minute?
Well, we got one
One more.
I got one more, Mike. I was
Yeah.
thinking the same.
We have to
Yeah.
talk about it?
Hurry up, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Okay,
It's a quick
Dolphin,
one.
Yeah.
Dolphin Drive guardrail. It's on your agenda later tonight. We've worked with the contractor that was the bidder, and we got it reduced down to like $66,000 if we do some work. So we don't have to talk about it right now. We can talk about it during the business meeting,
Okay.
but we just want to know whether or not you guys want to spend that much money.
What's the cost of just a regular guardrail? What's the difference in price?
I think it was about $20,000 less, 10 or $20,000 less.
And either way, we're still gonna have to dig and you're gonna have to deal with moving stuff around and maybe hitting rocks. So either way.
And you want it aesthetically pleasing along the lake, in my opinion.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we
Oh,
also-
yeah.
But,
It's a main road.
yeah,
I'm okay with it.
I read through it. I'm okay.
yeah. I
Good
wish
with
I
it.
could see a picture of it, but yeah. And you got enough in there for change order there, Derek?
Well, we didn't put any change order in, but we've worked with the contractor we're going to perform a few of the tasks to lower the
Okay,
final cost, which will give us room in case we hit rock and have to bring in a drill.
that sounds like fun.
We're creating change order room.
All right.
That's it.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All